Hello everyone and welcome to Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. This is Dog Nation's recruiting insider Jeff Sintel. We are so glad to have you with us as we talk a little recruiting over the course of the next hour. I'm always excited about that, but one thing in particular, Jeff, that I'm excited about today is coming up in just a couple of minutes. We've been telling you about this now for a while. We get to make the announcement. Our Dog Nation invasion to Baton Rouge, the giveaway courtesy of Kroger. We get to announce the winner live on the air here coming up in just a couple of minutes. So really excited about that, in addition to everything else that's going to happen on today's program.
Going to be a lucky day for somebody, no doubt. That is a very five-star prize.
All right, we'll also have some fun later on, kind of a look back at some of the great commitment videos in Dog Nation history. We'll ask you to weigh in on this. Jeff's got another six-pack of questions. We got a whole lot of fun and surprises in store here over the course of our next 60 minutes together. But let me begin with this, Jeff, if you don't mind. Something that I saw on the forum here this week at forum.dognation.com. Someone had grabbed something that UGA recruiting target Lewis Seen had put out on Snapchat. Now, I'm glad that somebody put this out on the forum because, as I've told you before, I have a better chance of finding the lost city of Atlantis than finding a 18-year-old kid on a Snapchat. That's not exactly the language that I speak all that fluently. But Lewis Seen put out something on Snapchat that definitely got my attention, and some of our forum readers at forum.dognation.com are apparently feeling the same way. Let me show you what Seen put out here, and then I want to get your reaction to all this because I know you've seen the game film here. Here is Lewis Seen on Snapchat giving us a pretty spectacular stat line for his performance here this past weekend. All right, so what Lewis Seen puts out. Okay, so we have. Let's see Lewis Seen. We'll see. We'll see the Lewis Seen video here in just a moment. But on Snapchat, he puts it out there. 26 tackles for him in the game supposedly this past weekend. That's an amazing performance, and I guess in keeping with a lot of what Seen here has done as of late.
You know, it's funny how our kind of show Brain Trust kind of puts it all together. Brandon texted me yesterday, and he's like, "Man, have you heard about this game that Lewis Seen had for Trinity Christian?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I did. I've spoken to him about it. He had 14 solo tackles, approximately 11 assists, and some people count those differently as a half tackle or an actual tackle. 25 total tackles the way the NFL counts them all up. Blocked a kick. He had 5 to 6 tackles for losses. Just a monster game for the nation's number 3 safety, who is a major Georgia target."
Yeah, he absolutely is. Coming up in just a moment, we'll hear a little bit about Lewis Seen in the conversation that you are able to have together, where he talked a little bit about just how close he is to becoming a Georgia commit at one point in time. Almost did that, and you see here on your screen some of the work that Seen does here for Trinity Christian out in Texas. Not only is he interested in Georgia, but the work that he's doing on film, an example of why Georgia's also interested in him right now.
Yeah, you look at Lewis, and it's funny. He's transferred from Boston, Massachusetts to Trinity Christian in Texas, and he's coached by a couple of former NFL DBs, most notably Deion Primetime Sanders. And it has been a nice adjustment for him because his previous program he was at in Massachusetts, Lewis tells me they wouldn't really feature him. They wouldn't turn him loose to go make plays. He would have to be one of those last line of defense, you come to me type safeties. But now he's kind of unleashed in a 26 tackle game to begin the year. Lewis is only on pace for somewhere around 247 tackles for his senior season.
So is it safe to say here, you talk about moving out to Texas and getting into a better program, obviously funded and sort of backed and sponsored by Deion Sanders here. This is pretty quickly becoming sort of the IMG of the West here, that Trinity is that sort of program in Texas. It's been a little bit like what IMG Academy is in the West.
Yeah, what they're doing is they're finding a lot of players that maybe are in the Texas area to begin with, but Lewis is a situation that extends out to the Northeast. And there are a couple of coaches on there, and Jeff Blake is one of them who works with the program, former Cincinnati Bengals and New York Jets quarterback. Deion Sanders, of course, that name needs no introduction. They've got a couple other guys on the staff that have played some NFL ball, and that's an opportunity for kids from maybe the Midwest and that great state of Texas to get some high-level training from former NFL guys and also play pretty competitive football. Deion has 2 sons on the team. Shiloh, everybody knows his name. He's the 3-star corner for the 2019 class that has had some conversations with Georgia. And then also Shedeur Sanders, the 2021 quarterback who recently picked up an offer for the Bulldogs, and I'm told by those very close to the situation, is a very good fit for Georgia at this time.
All right, we'll get a lot of comments. People are weighing in on the comment section here, but we mentioned Lewis Cine, and you sort of foreshadowed this a moment ago. The guy that did supposedly have the 26 tackles, or at least 20-something tackles in the game for his team this past weekend. You saw some of the highlights of him there a moment ago. In a recent conversation that he had with you, he really laid it out there that on a recent Georgia visit, apparently he was very close to actually committing to the University of Georgia. In fact, he used the word tempted to describe it, close now to a couple of Georgia commits here for the class of 2019. Here's how Lewis Cine talked about this recently when he spoke to you at Dog Nation.
Very close to Ryan Davis, and then I just got close to the running back,
John Emery.
Also the wide receiver there. Also,
Okay.
Yeah. I got close to them three boys. To be honest with you, it was very tempting. I'm not gonna lie to you.
What held you off?
You'll get caught in the moment. A lot of guys get caught in the moment. Just make that quick decision. But I'm a thinker.
So in that line there from Lewis Cine, you hear a bit of wisdom in that he says, hey, listen, I want to be careful not to make too emotional of a decision. He knows that some recruits do that from time to time, and maybe they end up regretting those decisions. So he tried to pump the brakes on the emotion, but he's close with Micaiah Tongue, a recent UGA commit. He's close with John Emery Jr., the five-star running back who we'll see in action later on in our program. Those relationships that he has with Georgia players, the way that Georgia coaches talk about him being used. This is obviously a guy that was thinking long and hard about maybe making that choice to Georgia.
Yeah, and he's a guy we've written about before on Dog Nation who came down for G-Day and very ironically didn't pick up any team gear or leftover T-shirts or shorts. He actually went on his own to one of the bookstores and purchased some Georgia stuff. It wasn't the Nike team official apparel, but he bought a Georgia sweatshirt for him to wear back in the winter to Boston. And he also bought a pair of shorts that he likes a whole lot as well, calls them a very good fit. And ironically, being the reporter I am, I asked him, I said, Lewis, did you do that when you took your official visit to Texas? No, sir. What about when you took your official visit to Michigan? No, sir. What about when he took his official visit to Penn State? No, sir, again. So he must have been feeling some type of way about the University of Georgia, at least good enough to spend his own money on some team gear.
Chris Harris on our Facebook comment section asked an interesting question. Given the stats that he's put up, given the video that you're seeing there on your screen, he says, how is Lewis Cine just a 4-star right now? And, obviously, listen, he ranks among the top priorities for Georgia, pretty clear, and we'll see more about that coming up in a moment. He's clearly put together a good game film, and Chris in the Facebook comment section says maybe it's even good enough that he ought to be higher than a 4-star prospect right now.
Well, here's the way I look at it, and it's kind of like there's a launch point, I think, about to happen for Lewis Cine, because he came out of a program in Boston that wasn't renowned for getting a lot of exposure. Let's face it, Mid-Atlantic football is what it is. But his coach would obviously take him out of games at halftime, so he couldn't put up those incredible stats. But now he's at a program that's going to face a lot of elite teams in Texas, so he's going to get the need to play the whole game. If you see all those highlights right there, Lewis Cine put up those highlights in a game that was a one-score ball game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a lot of time to showcase himself and to make a lot of plays. But to me, he started out his senior year as a 4-star prospect and the nation's number 3 safety, really based off last year's film. So I think that's just the starting point for where he can rise in the rankings when the eventual 2019 final rankings are decided.
Over on our YouTube comment section, William Lee says, Trinity Christian is a far cry from IMG Academy BA. Obviously taking umbrage with my comparison between those two schools a moment ago. With all due respect to Nolan Smith, I don't know that this IMG team is as good as some of the ones that have been there in the past. And I guess what I'm saying about Trinity is it's that school where people sort of move to go there, and
Correct.
You can sort of show up and sort of, at least some programs would do this, sort of blanket the program with a lot of different offers. I think we'll see some of that over the course of the classes of 2020 and beyond there for that Trinity program.
Yeah, it's definitely not an IMG, but it is a private school where some kids are being enticed or just noticed from across the country because they get the chance to be coached, especially a defensive back, mind you. they get the chance to be coached by one Deion Sanders.
No. Cameron Merrill, also in our YouTube comment section, says that he says Seen and Stevenson have got to be our top targets, right? Well, let's look at that right now. It is the top 5 targets for Georgia's 2019 class. We do this every week on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Let's take a look here to see how those top 5 targets rank right now. So let me. So obviously Tyreek Stevens was the guy we had ranked number 1 on this list a week ago. Then you get to Lewis Seen, then you get to Clay Webb. You see the rest of the list there. So pretty clearly Stevenson and Seen are both on that top 5 remaining targets list for Georgia.
It's very interesting because one of the things you look at there when you look at that screen again is they're divided by 5 stars and then 4 stars. But to me, I think the top of the board might be those 3 defensive backs at the bottom, because there's really only one defensive back commitment for Georgia in 2019 right now, and that's Jalen Perry. And the one thing we need to make sure we pepper into this discussion on Lewis Seen, again, I know it looks like sign, but you guys just need to get used to getting highlight scenes or movie scenes when you think about Lewis Seen. But when you look at all this stuff here, he is expected to make his commitment in mid-October to late October. And there's a simple reason for that. He wants to take 2 more official visits. He's got 2 left. One of those will be to Georgia. That will be for the Tennessee game. And, of course, his good buddy Ryan Davis has told us that he's going to make sure that he's in for an unofficial visit to Georgia when his buddy Lewis Seen takes that visit. But the other thing there to think about is he has also scheduled a visit to Florida. And Florida has had hot and cold recruiting with him, and now they're piping hot and they're coming in after him as well. Then after he makes that second official visit to Florida, that is when Lewis Seen tells me he will be comfortable making his college decision.
All right, every single week when we bring up our top 5 remaining targets here and look at that ranking, it always generates a lot of comments. No different here. First of all, a compliment for us, Jeff, you'll like this. Raymond Cox in the Facebook comment section says that Adams and Centel are better than biscuits and butter. I don't know in this case who's biscuits and who's butter, but that's kind of a nice compliment there from Raymond. That's a pretty good combination. I know I love biscuits and butter.
Biscuits and butter. That's a good sop up your plate with a biscuit. I do appreciate the compliment there.
Speaking of biscuits and butter, coming in a moment, a place that you can get a lot of biscuits and butter from with our friends at Kroger. They're going to announce the Dog Nation Invasion giveaway winner. We'll do that live here in a couple of minutes coming up here on Before the Hedges here today. Stacy Hyman, though, on the subject of the top 5 remaining targets, Stacy's suggestion is to take off Clay Webb and put Chris Hinton on there. Now, I asked you this sort of last week. What is our philosophy here? When it comes to top 5 remaining targets, are we just going to keep this to uncommitted players, or are we going to look at what Georgia truly needs and wants? Because if it's about true need here and commitment's not a consideration, and I got to tell you, I am taking Webb off as much as I'd like to have Webb as part of this class, and I am putting Hinton on there at that point in time. So philosophically, Jeff, are we keeping this to uncommitted guys, or is this true top 5 target?
Well, I would say philosophically, when there is a need to move a committed target in there, then we will.
Okay.
I think Michigan maybe needs to lose a couple more games for the maybe flip factor to really open up in a lot of people's perspective regarding Chris Hinton. But if we're going to use that kind of math, I can rejigger the board like a Jenga puzzle or maybe a Tetris game, and I would put maybe Andrew Booth up there number 1, or I would put a guy like Nathan Pickering up there number 1.
Yeah.
Some of those
Fair
Zacchaeus Pickens up there number 1. It's got to be kind of a mutual pull where there's love from both sides.
All right, let me hit a couple of these other comments. James Crump, though, disagreeing with me, says, I want Clay Webb. So that's a guy in James who obviously follows this stuff very closely, saying, you know what, even if that's not exactly Georgia's biggest position of need, when you can get a 5-star guy, and let's face it, when you can take him from Alabama, James Crump apparently says that's something you got to do there at that point.
I think I would probably go 1, 2, 3 with the DBs, and you could shake them up in a bag. I would probably go Stevenson, Seen, and then Stevenson, Seen, and then Elam. I would probably put Nakobe Dean after that, just based on a lot of needs. And then obviously you go at the back end there, Clay Webb. I think Clay Webb, as good as he is a luxury purchase or a luxury addition to Georgia's class. Let me make sure not to say purchase,
right,
but a luxury addition to Georgia's class.
Doug Rayburn in the Facebook comment section, we asked before, somebody compared us to bread and butter or butter and biscuits. I said, well, who's the butter, who's the biscuits? You'll be happy to know that on Facebook, Doug Rayburn says Jeff is butter because you're on a roll.
How about ham and eggs? I'm the eggs, and who would be the ham?
I'm a bit of a ham. There's no doubt about that. Diedrich Frazier, also on YouTube, before we close the book on this subject, about Chris Hinton needing a couple more Michigan losses for him to maybe start doing a little window shopping somewhere else, says that Michigan's definitely going to lose a couple of more games. And we talked about this on Dog Nation Daily earlier this week. if you're Michigan and you go on the road to Notre Dame, that's not a game you have to apologize for losing for necessarily. But I thought there was more pressure on Michigan to perform there because of how poorly it has performed recently on national stages.
Well, in the victor, predictor, win column, when you're looking at things right there for Michigan, I'm just going to simply say that was one that I thought Michigan needed to have in order to have a superlative season. So the fact that they lose the Notre Dame game, to me, bodes very interesting things going on in the future with teams like Nebraska, teams like Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State still coming down the line. And don't forget Wisconsin as well.
Real Caged on YouTube, we talked about Chris Hinton. He says, guys, Chris Hinton's going to end up going to Stanford. Is he another guy in that sort of Harry Miller category that if he did choose a different out-of-state school, it would be to Stanford? Stanford also ends up, to me, being one of those things that a lot of people say they're going to go to, but virtually no one ever does. The ones that do aren't happy when they get there.
Well, you got to give props to Stanford because while other schools, including Georgia, blanket the country with offers like 300, 400 offers, Stanford only offers about 40 guys every year, and those are the guys that adhere to those very strict, at least the 25 ACT, upwards of 3.6, 3.7 GPAs. Stanford has their guys in mind, and they don't offer a lot of them.
But my point is, at some point in time, are we going to notice these guys that head out west, eventually they transfer back east? I mean, at some point in time, we're going to notice that seems to be a fairly consistent trend here?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of people that are waiting to see. I mean, everybody knows the 2 5-star tackles. Walker Little was one of those that transferred, that went to They went to Stanford as well. Davis Mills is out there. There's a lot of big-time players that have chosen Stanford, and they show up sometime usually around their sophomore, junior year in a big Pac-10 game.
We will do the Dog Nation Invasion giveaway in a moment. Let me squeeze in a couple more comments. We obviously want to be as interactive as we possibly can on the show. And by the way, we'll also include that a $50 How About Them Groceries gift card giveaway for a comment that Jeff really enjoys today. We'll kind of weigh in on that. Enrique Murillo in the Facebook, you should say the YouTube comment section says that top 5 list we just showed, he views all of them as must-have. It's kind of an interesting scenario. Some of the fact that they got like Kier Elam might not have been on this list had DJ Daniel made a different choice when he chose South Carolina over Georgia recently, but he looks at those top 5 as guys that Georgia all has to have.
For a spirit of true interactivity here and engagement, I want to ask 2 things. Number one, we don't do this a lot, but hey, if you feel so inclined, give us a like along the feed right now and also share it across your timeline. The second thing, and this is more on point with the matter at hand, go off the board for me right now. I want everybody else to get their opinion, and I obviously want to get Mr. Ham and Ham and Egger here. I want you to tell me the name of a player that you want to see in Georgia's 2019 class that is currently not on that board, and I'll give you maybe bonus points if you name someone that is currently uncommitted or even that they would like to flip from another school. But let me just pull 2 names out of this discussion. No Andrew Booth and no Chris Hinton. I'd like to know what the fans want to see outside of those guys.
Can I say mine now, or do I need to wait?
Sure, go ahead.
In honor of the week that we're in, I'm going to say Zach Pickens.
You want to see Zach Pickens?
Yeah, in honor of the fact that we're playing Georgia and South Carolina this Saturday, how about go ahead and add him onto that list for that there. So we'll take your comments on that. Let me also do this. Jarrell Ortega reminds me of something in our YouTube comment section. He asks, will Cine be a safety or a star in Georgia's defense? And I don't think I played the other clip here from Louis Cine where he talks about that. You ask Louis Cine, hey, how does Georgia see you? Do they, nickelback, safety, what would you be? And, Jarrell, Louis Cine actually answers this question himself for you. So in honor of your question, I'm sure many people have it as well. Here's how Louis Cine says he would be used by Georgia.
They see me playing a bit of all of it because I give them that type of flexibility. While I did camp for Coach Tucker, and he was really impressed with how fluid I was with my pedals, getting out of breaks, how fast I was, the length, I'm rangy. He really loved that. And then while watching the tape of the games and everything like that, he showed me everywhere he wants me playing to make the defense flexible.
So I'll bring people in on a little secret. You and I off the air talk a lot about, for some reason, defensive secondary. Who's a cornerback, who's a safety, and I'm a big believer that I need guys that play cornerback because that's what national champions have. And you always sort of go back to Georgia wants guys that sort of do it all. And it's kind of funny that Louis Cine really echoes a lot of what you've talked to me about off the air a lot, which is that you gotta be versatile, and Louis Cine's definitely that.
Well, here's a little backstory on that, and there's some roots to this. Everybody knows that statement there. I think it's a factoid that floats around college football that Nick Saban has never beaten an Auburn team that has won at least 9 games. That's a little innuendo there that Nick Saban At LSU and also at Alabama has never beaten an Auburn team that has won at least 9 games. So that's a nice little parallel to what Auburn likes to do. Their tempo, their hurry up. Let's face it, the Gus Bus is known mostly for that. And what Georgia, and a lot of the ways that modern defenses would combat all that, is they want to have interchangeable players. I call them all the time. I call them Swiss Army knife players, where the guy will hold up in the run, the guy will hold up in pass coverage, and the guy can run and operate in space as well. Can tackle, can run, can hit, and can cover. Those are the ideal traits that Georgia would like to see in its secondary when they're having to deal with a lot of tempo offenses.
So you asked a moment ago in the comments section who's not on this list you'd like to see Georgia get. You said take Chris Hinton's name out of it, but the one thing that Dante Edie brings up on Facebook that's a good point is, and you and I have spoken about this so many times, that part of Chris Hinton's potential value to Georgia's 2019 class is it also could potentially include Miles Hinton for the 2020 class. And at that point in time, that's a pretty good 2-for-1 there when it comes to the Hinton family. But Chris Farrell on YouTube, or I should say on Facebook, also mentioning Ishmael Sopsher, the big 5-star defensive lineman from Louisiana, from Amite, Louisiana. If Georgia got another player from Louisiana for the 2019 class, I believe they might push at Orgeron right onto the unemployment line themselves. I mean, I'd love to have Sopsher, but this seems to me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, this feels like an LSU-Alabama battle, and really exclusively just those two schools right now.
Sometimes the players from the boot tell me, all things being equal, why would I go past Alabama to choose Georgia? And I think there's some merit there. And obviously Orgeron and Coach O's big win on over the weekend will help stabilize that cold, hot seat for Ed Orgeron. One thing to consider there as well is that everybody wants to think about the defensive tackles. And as we've said on Before the Hedges before in previous weeks, that's very smart, because you look at Georgia's depth chart right now, you look at the guys which I call graduating dogs, the dogs that are scheduled to leave the program and vector out of the program with their eligibility in 2 seasons. And Georgia's going to lose 9 guys on the defensive line in the next 2 seasons.
All right, really quickly here, Philip Jordan Wells on Facebook says, you and I on Monday talked about Florida State's bad performance, I should say on Tuesday, we talked about that bad game for Florida State on Monday. In terms of potential UGA recruiting targets, what Philip asks is that bad performance by Willie Taggart going to negatively impact Derek Rambo Hunter, who is, at least within the last couple of months, a fairly recent 2019 commit for Florida State?
Man, Brandon, how times have changed. We're breaking back Rambo Hunter in there. I think most people, even my peers in the recruiting industry, have basically resigned themselves to thinking, we're not going to write about Rambo Hunter until maybe a week before he has to finally make a decision, because there might be some sort of stability with his process or whatever. I think there's 2 ways to look at this Florida State stuff, and I wrote about that earlier this week already on my blog. I just can't see, Brandon, how Florida State right now is currently so deficient at linebacker and on the offensive line. And I explained that on the blog, but the one thing, you're going to look at 2 names. You're going to look at Nakobe Dean, for instance. I know Nakobe Dean can look at that in one of 2 ways. He can go, you know what? Maybe don't want to be a part of this regime right now because it still needs to lay a foundation. But he can also look at it and say, I could probably come in right now and get in the 2 deep at linebacker for Florida State. 2 ways that most recruits will look at it, but I don't think that performance from Willie Taggart bodes well for the rest of the season, especially all the problems they got going on up front.
All right, coming up here on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger, we'll take a look at a pretty long and distinguished list of visitors for Georgia this past Saturday in the brand new West End Zone facility that greeted them. Many of them saw it for the open house not too long ago, but this was the first chance to be hosted there for an actual game, so we'll talk about that coming up. I will remind you that Before the Hedges is presented by Kroger. And listen, I cannot promise you that your team, including the Georgia Bulldogs, will be a winner every time it plays on Saturdays this fall, but you can be a winner when you get, whether it be your tailgate or your house party snacks for football season. When you get that right there at Kroger, they'll take care of everything you need for the beverages and the food and everything else. Get it at Kroger. You'll save a whole lot more. You'll have everything that you need. It'll be oh so tasty. We love having Kroger as part of Before the Hedges each and every Wednesday here on the Dog Nation video channels. And speaking of Kroger, something I've been telling you about now for quite some time is the Dog Nation Invasion giveaway courtesy of Kroger. We're heading to Baton Rouge in October. Kroger wanted you to join us, and they were going to give away a trip for a lucky Before the Hedges Dog Nation reader and a guest to be there with us for the Dog Nation Invasion to Baton Rouge coming up in October. And I'm really proud now to announce our winner of this. Congratulations goes out to Steve Langston. Steve, you are the winner of the Dog Nation Invasion to Baton Rouge. You and a guest will be with us there on the big event. We're really excited about all of that. And Jeff, I know that, both from a recruiting standpoint, which is obviously the subject we talk about here on this program, and in terms of how it's going to impact Georgia's 2018 season, especially with the win that LSU just earned for itself against Miami. This game gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We already knew it was going to be one of the biggest parties of the year. How much fun is Dog Nation Invasion to Baton Rouge going to be with our friends there at Kroger?
I guess we would call Mr. Langston a 5-star recruit.
Yeah, for sure.
To the Dog Nation Invasion. And, I love when we give these things away, especially courtesy of all of our fine sponsors and the relationship there with Kroger. It'd be nice to get that guy on the phone and maybe get his reaction sometime as well. I'd hate for him to be sitting there at work and knocking out some TPS reports or whatever, and one of his buddies text him and say, "Hey man, can I go with you to Baton Rouge with Dog Nation?"
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, this trip is particularly special. I've never been to a game in Baton Rouge before. Been to New Orleans before. It's a great city. Looking forward to sort of making that kind of our home base leading up to kickoff there on Saturday. But in terms of being there at Death Valley for a game, I've never seen it. I'm looking forward to that atmosphere. I've heard great things about it. I look forward to seeing Georgia be tested by a defense in LSU that I think is going to be really good. And it's going to be really cool to be hanging out with our friends from Kroger there that day as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the nation and everybody that can weigh in on the timeline as well in the comment section. 3 things: will go, like to go, not going. I'd like to know what the nation right now is weighing in on and whether they'll be there with us as well in Baton Rouge.
You'll also be happy to know that we've already got some politicking going on in our Facebook comment section as well. Jay Wise says to Steve Langston, our winner, "Steve, you need a chaperone, right?" So you already see some elbowing going on to see if somebody can sort of get their way onto the trip there with Steve Langston.
Somebody needs to say, "Steve, I'll take care of all the tabs if you just take me with you to New Orleans."
That's not a bad deal at all. I think a lot of people would probably, especially given some of the I've been watching some of these travel prices as of late for Georgia fans who spent a lot in 2017, 2018, at least in terms of this trip, sort of picking up right where it left off. Another big ticket road trip here, but it's going to be a lot of fun for the Georgia fans who get to be a part of it, and we're really excited about sharing a lot of that with you here with our Dog Nation Invasion, presented by Kroger, and congratulations to Steve Langston for being our winner there. All right, let me shift gears and talk about a different subject for a moment, and I want to show you a little bit of video here that our buddy Connor Riley captured from Saturday. Georgia running out of the locker room for the first time with the brand new West End Zone facility. Jeff, you know I'm a pro wrestling fan. There is something very sort of pro wrestling-esque about this, and I mean that as the highest compliment possible. I love the smoke. I love the LED boards on both sides of this. I love the narrow sort of shotgun-style entranceway here that Georgia used. You can see in the background of that video that it's a lot of recruits and families of recruits who are sort of lining the edges of that entrance. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just really hungry for the return of football, so everything seemed extra specially cool this past Saturday. But moving from the East End Zone entrance, which where the players used to come onto the field from, to the West End Zone, and the slight changes to that West End Zone look, a little more of a steep look with the bleachers, a little more room for a few more students. Obviously, the brand new recruiting area there, and the nice new board, new sound system. I thought the whole thing was just a huge step forward for Sanford Stadium.
Well, it's got to be $65 million well spent, and Brandon, if we want to take this to the nth degree and get some more juice out of a moment that still had a lot of smoke. How about this? Maybe we get Kirby Smart with a megaphone, maybe Jimmy Hart style, and then maybe the players of the week from the previous week would have the Savage shoulder pads on coming out of the tunnel. Can you imagine what that would look like for a night game?
Oh, sure.
Georgia has definitely upgraded its in-game experience.
And listen, I know we're in a day and age now where Alabama's on the verge of spending a huge 9-figure sum to make its stadium nicer. I think that Clemson, let's be fair here, does a pretty good job of entertaining its recruits. We've heard that. Auburn's in-game environment had a big impact on Owen Popo. He described that as one of the reasons why he chose Auburn a few months ago. I have a hard time imagining, though, that anything right now, and you can speak to this a little bit better, and we'll see some of the recruits who were on hand on Saturday in a moment, but I have a hard time imagining that any stadium here in the South right now is taking a back seat to the way that Georgia recruits are hosted on a Saturday this past weekend, where it was very hot, but there was plenty of space and air conditioning for those recruits, and just the overall look and vibe was big time. Now, by the second half, it sort of felt like G-Day, but in the first half, it had the feel of a real big game, despite the fact that it was Austin Peay on the other sideline.
Yeah, lots of new wrinkles, Brandon, to the Georgia game experience. If you look around, there's the chances for them to go inside and catch a cold drink or catch more barbecue. There's the ribbon boards around it. But did you notice the upgrades of the new DJ at Sanford Stadium?
Yeah.
No more Rick Springfield or Journey or whatever you may have. None of that. None of those old tunes for the older sex or the money crowd. It's all about creating a great experience. And you rolled off some good ones. I'm going to say this, and I know sometimes people will shake that finger at Centel when he talks about rivals with a lot of praise, but I still go back to that Auburn game you mentioned. You mentioned Auburn. I go back to that Auburn-Georgia game last year. That in-game experience with the crowd and the music and the interaction.
It was big time.
That was 5-star. That was first class. That might be as crunk or as lit as any venue I've ever been in.
Yeah, you're a lot more of an objective reporter than I am. It pains me to ever give Auburn a compliment. I don't mind telling you that. But you know what? In November last year, they created a pretty dadgum good atmosphere, and Georgia's matching that now with the improvements it's made to its West End Zone facility. As far as some of the guys that got a chance to experience that firsthand in the first game to ever sort of experience that new West End Zone facility, here's some of the recruits of note who were spotted in Athens on this past Saturday. Let's take a look at that right now. We'll see some of those guys who are kind of in there and kind of going through this, whether it be Jamil Burrows, who's the recent UGA commit, Trayvon Walker, the 5-star, who's also a recent UGA commit. You had the brother of Cade Mays, Cooper Mays, on hand for this one. Pretty good-looking 2020 prospect, Zy Walker, on hands, and a Cedric Van Pran as well. Eric Gilbert was there. A pretty good-looking group of visitors there.
Yeah, we've got a screen grab of we got a full screen of everybody that was there. But you're going to go through the list, and you got a lot of. I guess Trayvon Walker and Dominic Blaylock get the rights of being the first 5-star recruits that will sit in the West End Zone for the Bulldogs. They were there on hand. Trayvon was usually flanked by Warren McClendon. That's the gentleman out of Brunswick, the 4-star offensive tackle commit. And then you saw a lot of juice and a lot of smoke on the 2020 front. Everybody's going to look at Eric Gilbert, the 5-star out of Marietta High. Could he be an athlete? He's going to be a tight end, likely, if he has his choice on the college level on Saturdays. One name I want to take everybody's attention to in 2020, aside from Jamil Burrows, the recent commit, was 3-star offensive lineman Cooper Mays.
Yeah.
Now that's a legacy of Tennessee,
right?
But I guess also the younger brother of Cade Mays right now. And Cooper Mays was right there front and center in the West End Zone, watching his younger brother and the future of the Georgia offensive line work out. Cade was wearing number 42, and then he had the ability to come and dap up his brother during the middle of pregame warmups. So I thought that was very interesting. Now, Cooper says he likes Georgia a lot. He was impressed and even thrilled by the venue there. Liked the fact that he got a lot to eat and everything going forward. So Cooper is definitely he's a 3-star. He's seen as a center. He camped very well at Georgia, and he's had an offer for quite a long time. He's not expected to make any decisions anytime soon. But I have to believe, these are my own thoughts, I have to believe that Georgia sits in a very strong position right now for Cooper Mays.
Yeah, obviously with the relationship with Cade Mays in the 2018 class, that's easy to understand. Kind of interesting here that Cooper projecting his alignment a little bit different than his brother did, whereas you kind of always said that Cade Mays had that chance to be maybe an elite guard at the college level. He was listed as a tackle, though, by all the major recruiting services, where it sounds like for Cooper Mays already, he's that interior offensive line prospect. And have you ever seen a time in which Georgia was deeper in terms of either the interior offensive lineman is recently signed or the ones that sort of in cozy relationships with? Clay Webb, who we spoke about earlier, the brother of Cade Mays here, another Tennessee legacy that Georgia's sort of in the mix with. It's an amazing time in terms of what Sam Pittman has done, in particular with the interior offensive lineman. Now, I think you and I both would sort of point to maybe some of what still needs to be done at the offensive tackle position, but when it comes to those interior offensive linemen, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and a little bit I can share more about Cooper Mays. He's not as big as Cade. Cade's about 6'5", about 310, maybe 6'6", 310 when he got to Georgia, 315. Now, Cooper is more of a 6'4" type kid. He's right around 260 right now. Still got some growing to do, but again, he is just now starting his junior season at Knoxville Christian Academy, up there in Knoxville, of course. His dad was a former captain under Phil Fulmer, but he does like the aspect of playing for Sam Pittman already. He's got some great Sam Pittman stories as well, but I think Cooper more likely going to fit as a guard or a center should he choose Georgia in the long run.
K9 Blues over on YouTube's got a really good question. We're sort of talking about these recruits sort of being impacted by the brand new West End Zone facility here this week. K9 asks, Jeff, what would you like to see as our next football upgrade or addition? And I'm going to assume here K9's asking this from the standpoint of if it's going to help recruiting, which construction project would really resonate there? What do recruits want to see that Georgia doesn't currently have? And K9, I think that's a really good question.
I think it's a great question. Now, I think there's what I think, and then there's what recruits actually mention. The recruit is always going to be that guy that says, I commit to a program, I commit to players, I commit to coaches, I commit to a philosophy. I don't commit to stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think Georgia, let's face it, some kids, all things being equal, are going to be blown away by Alabama's new 25,000 square foot nutrition center where they can go in waves and everybody can eat at one time, or the weight room where people don't have to go in shifts as well. I think Georgia needs to upgrade its nutrition complex and the weight room complex. And then after that, I think eventually, and I know this, I'd love to hear everybody else's opinion on this because there are going to be some polarizing thoughts on this. Will we ever reach a time, maybe when Georgia knocks off maybe 4 national titles in the next 9 years, where the thought is broached about enclosing Sanford over there on the bookstore side, and
not be able to see the rolling hills, maybe not be able to see the bridge anymore. There's obviously there's a historic sort of traditional trade-off there, but you make it a bigger stadium and maybe more in keeping with some of the attendance numbers for some of the other ballparks.
It is a money world, though, Brandon. Yeah. And money moves the dial. Red and black's a great color, but I think green also trumps red and black in a lot of cases. And if you get the situation where Sanford can go up to 105 and 110, I think that would be a recruiting tool as well. One other thing to think about there is Georgia currently already has the highest ticket prices in college football. So if they add 10,000, 15,000 more seats to Sanford, whatever way they do it, that would also be a financial windfall for the university.
All right, coming up in just a moment, our buddy Mike Johnson, the former SEC All-American, who's been doing such a great job breaking down some of Georgia's current freshman offensive linemen and some of the potential stars of the 2019 class. We'll hear from him, his thoughts on Trey Hill. And by the way, Hill could be on the verge of maybe earning some significant playing time for Georgia at some point in time during his freshman season. What does he look like on film? Mike knows the position very well. He'll break that down coming up in just a moment. Before we get to that, though, I got some good news and bad news for you from our comment section here. I know one of the great staples of the old Wednesday night Facebook Live broadcast you used to do was a little Braves talk during the show when the Braves were playing. The good news is that trend has now been taken to the brand new Before the Hedges here on Wednesday afternoons. The bad news is, according to Charles Kaiser in our Facebook comment section, it is not looking great for the Braves right now, apparently losing this day game to close up the series of the Boston Red Sox. Looks like Boston may come into Atlanta and get a sweep here.
I will share an opinion from one of my good buddies, and he said he's a huge Braves fan. Lots of Braves fans I know. And he sent out a text last night to a group of guys that like to have some fun together at times. And he said that I know what Georgia Tech fans feel like, because he said watching the Atlanta Braves play the Boston Red Sox is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. And that's a situation where you look at it and say, Atlanta's pretty good. Atlanta can do a little bit of things, but they don't have the ammunition in order to hang with a team like Boston. And I think this series is revealing of that.
The great news is they got a big homestand coming up where they have a chance to punch that ticket to the postseason. We'll look forward to watching that. But here on this show, our subject is UGA recruiting talk. That's Jeff Sintel. My name is Brandon Adams. It's great to be a part of it with you, and we thank Kroger for bringing it to you. We call it Before the Hedges. When you think about Kroger here this time of year, you think about those tailgates you're getting ready to have, those game day parties you're hosting at your home. You've got a lot of beverages, a lot of food to buy, and you want to take care of all the people who are there to be served by you. And the place to do that with great bargains and great tastes is right there with our friends at Kroger. So I can't promise you your team's always a winner on the field, but you will be a winner as the host of your tailgater party when you take care of all those game day essentials right there with our friends at Kroger. We got a lot more coming up on our program today. Later on, we'll have some fun with some of the great moments in Dog Nation commitment video history, some of the great looks back on some of the guys that have committed to the University of Georgia via Dog Nation commitment video. We'll do that with you coming up here. For now, though, as promised, he is one of the top freshman offensive linemen of the Georgia Bulldogs. He's a guy that could be in line for some big playing time coming up. Made his debut on Saturday. He is Trey Hill. Our buddy Mike Johnson, who played in the NFL and was an All-American in Alabama, he gives you what he likes about Hill. Enjoy it here is a segment we like to call Real Talk.
All right, guys, you've been calling for it for weeks now. You want to see another Real Talk with Mike Johnson, and we got another nation's #2 OG. He's already at Georgia. Trey Hill, Mike Johnson, let's start chopping him up.
Yeah, no doubt. I think when you look at his film, it looks like a guy. Honestly, when I first saw him, I was like, okay, his foot speed leaves a lot to be desired. But I think there's also a little bit of patience in there, which I think is really incredible when you look at high school film. He's a patient player. He knows when to explode. I think his foot acceleration gets better when he gets locked on. Pretty good player in my mind.
All right, let's dive into that film, Mike. I guess first off, we always talk about is he a left or right tackle. Can you do the same thing with left or right guard? Do you see tendencies there?
You don't see it so much because when you talk about a left or right guard, you're talking about guys who really have people on either side of them, and that's the thing. They want to play inside of a phone booth. They want to be able to show their going straight forward power as opposed to their moving side to side power. I think he moves well laterally. Like I said, I think that when you watch the film, he leaves a little bit to be desired as far as the foot speed goes, but he shows good acceleration, he shows good lower body strength, and he does a good job of getting separation with his arms as well.
Mike, I got a hot button question for you. Being an Alabama guy that saw the rise of that dynasty, does this look like the type of players that the Crimson Tide were bringing in during their heyday?
It absolutely does, and I think that's such an exciting thing for Georgia football fans to really see these offensive lines. When I first started talking to you guys about Georgia's football teams, kind of seeing them make that transition, the next level thing was to get the offensive line and defensive line to a national championship caliber level. Not only the starting guys, but you're talking about the depth. That's exactly what I see in some of these guys. All these players that Georgia has brought in the last couple of years are starting caliber guys in the SEC. It's almost like, hey, listen, you can start at 10 or 12 places, but you're going to have to wait your turn here. That's an exciting thing, man. That's really when you start to see that roster turnover really start to take hold.
So, Mike, you look at him. I want you to focus on the lower body from like the hips down. Who does he remind you of? What's the player parallel there?
Yeah, listen, there's a ton of player parallels you could name, I think, as far as the SEC goes, and obviously I know a lot of Alabama guys. I've talked about Chance Warmack on here a couple of times, and really that's because he was a top 10 player in the NFL draft. He had lower body strength, he could roll his hips, he had the core strength. That's what you're seeing out of a guy like this. You're not going to be able to meet him in a hole and knock him back. His legs are just too strong. I think his ability to kind of hold his ground really is what makes him so special at this point in time.
Mike, what are the giveaways or the tells for you when you can look at a kid and say he's been coached up, his technique is there, or he's a little bit raw?
Well, it's different things. Obviously, offensive line have to do a couple of different things. There's zone blocking, there's man blocking schemes, there's pass blocking schemes. I think he's got to get a little bit better in his pass blocking just because that foot speed doesn't tend to be there right off the bat. I think in the run game, when he gets locked on, he accelerates very well, which is something you don't see always out of a high school kid. But in that lateral movement, that ability to kind of move back and forth, his feet do tend to get heavy. I think that's going to come with conditioning. That's going to come with weight room work. But this is a guy who you definitely can see, molding into one of those elite caliber players.
Nation's #1 guard, Trey Hill. If you look at this film, Mike, project out for him. He loses about 20 pounds, changes his weight around.
Yep.
Where do you see him at maybe year 2020 in the SEC?
No, I think he's an All-American caliber player. Obviously you're going to lose some weight, and when you look at some of these guys that are stepping into these weight room programs, the first thing they have to do, you either have to gain 20 pounds or you have to lose 20 pounds. That's what a lot of guys have to do when they come from high school. His foot speed is going to get better when he loses weight, and I think that's going to be the biggest test for him, being able to step into that nutrition plan, get a little bit of weight off. Once he does, though, there's nothing that's going to be able to stop this kid. I mean, he really has elite level strength, legs, upper body, core, you name it, he can do it.
Last thing for me on this film, Mike, he can play some center, he can play some guard. Where would you put him if he was on your offensive line?
I think I'd put him at center, and I think he can play guard, but he looks like one of those guys that's able to anchor really well, gets all his cleats in the ground, is able to kind of bounce around with his feet. And he's going to have sidebars on either side. When you're playing at guard, obviously you can get more spaced out. When you're playing that center position, most of those big guys in front of you, 330, 340, they're not going that far. And so you'd be able to anchor down. I think that makes him an all-conference style player.
Guys, there you have it. Some real talk on Trey Hill. Some guys on the forum call it pit bosses or pit crew. We just chopped up another Bulldog on Before the Hedges.
So I think it's a great breakdown there from our buddy Mike Johnson and you when it comes to Trey Hill from that 2018 class, now one of these freshmen. He'll play some on Saturday. Jamari Salyer plays some on Saturday. Cade Mays plays some on Saturday. I guess, and you had a great report at DogNation.com where you looked at those freshmen that did and didn't get in the game. I mentioned 3 that did. You wrote about the fact that Warren Erickson's not seen playing, Owen Condon's not seen playing. For the guys that have played, and I think for right now it's those top 3 that I just mentioned, they're the most interesting comparison. How do you compare Hill right now to Salyer and Mays, and who is in line for the most significant playing time as soon as could be expected in SEC games like the one that Georgia's going to play against South Carolina on Saturday?
Yeah, great question. I think you got to look at the number 42 jersey there for Cade Mays, and I snapped a few photos of him in 42. If you listen closely to Kirby Smart this week, he talks about getting on the bus and making this 70 travel roster. I think Cade Mays is a guy that I think is going to be in there. Not just because he can be a backup guard or he can be a backup tackle. It's because he can come in on those power plays
Right.
and play some H-back.
Yeah.
And maybe even a tight end look on some power 2 tight end or power sets or 3 tight end sets as well, some jumbo stuff. But the other thing you think about with Cade, he can play guard, he can play left guard, he can play right tackle. And then Trey Hill, I think, is the next guy that might garner consideration because he can play some guard and he can also play some center. Right now, it's kind of ironic that I think the most upside lineman of the 3, Jamari Salyer, is kind of the guy that's 3rd in the playing pecking order right now. And he's looking mostly at being a left guard or a guard right now, although he's shown some glimpses at center as well. But you saw Trey Hill, and this is very funny. At the start of the second half, funny's not the right word, very hopeful and very bright future for Georgia fans. As you started the second half, Cade Mays went to play left tackle, Jamari Salyer was the left guard, and then Trey Hill was the center. And oh my, I wish I could have captured the looks on some of those faces of those Austin Peay defensive linemen, even some subs into the defensive line after about 3 or 4 reps with those guys. Because that right there, guys, is the reason why Georgia's offensive line recruiting is so very special.
Can't help but notice you say that right now Hill and Mays may be a bit ahead of Salyer. That to me would almost exclusively be because that both those guys had the benefit of being in spring practice. In the case of Cade Mays, maybe Hill too, but I happen to see Mays with my own eyes. He practiced with Georgia in January. So, that's a huge advantage over Salyer, who at Pace Academy was sort of forced to finish the second semester of high school.
You know, Brandon, if I could give you a $50 gift card to Kroger for a very interesting and a very 5-star, a waylay jackhammer point so far in our program, I would give you that one for that because that's what it is. Trey Hill, Cade Mays are both very good players, very intelligent players, very seasoned players. But they also had a 6-month head start on Jamari Salyer as well. Perfect reason why, and I think that's a great reason why currently Salyer is running 3rd in the pecking order in terms of immediate playing time at Georgia.
Still to come here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. A major target of Georgia's for the 2020 class has tweeted something pretty interesting today. We'll share that with you. We'll have some fun with a look back at some of the great Dog Nation commitment videos of the past. But before that, one of the things we love doing here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger, is to kind of look in on, especially this time of year with the high school season taking place, some of the big moments for Georgia commits in a high school uniform. An example of that comes from our buddy John Emery Jr., the 5-star running back, captured by New Orleans television here. Just one of the most amazing, and you've had some great video of Emery in the past that we've seen your Centel Intels. Our buddy Michael Carvel's captured some of this as well that we've shown here on the Before the Hedges before. But the best highlight I've maybe ever seen from Emery may be the one we're about to show here.
I mean, he had a great viral tweet that went out over the weekend by a sports director from a New Orleans, the Fox affiliate. And you thought, yeah, that's pretty stinking good, and we were going to use that on our show. But then the guy was going through some raw footage and found, I think, maybe one of the top 20 highlights I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at this from John Emery Jr. here, just throwing guys left and right. Garland Gillen's the reporter here from New Orleans that brings that to the table. But look at this whole host of defenders having to bring Emery Jr. to the ground there. And, a lot of times we show Emery's highlights, we show the blazing speed. Sometimes in high school, though, because the comparison of athlete is not necessarily all that impressive, it's sort of hard to tell what the speed's bringing to the table there. But the size and the strength, that's easy to translate. And when 6 guys, which is about what I counted there, when 6 guys can't bring him down, that's pretty impressive.
We have later in our show, we'll have our Dog Nation 6-pack. Well, John Emery's got a 6-pack for all the recruiting fans out there because John Emery, if you look right back there to that clip right now, he is trailing, or he's maybe the 18-wheeler, and his cargo are 6 defenders from a rival high school in action last Friday night. John Emery, I'm going to say this one more time, folks. Maybe I haven't said it big enough or loud enough or had my Jimmy Hart megaphone out there for everything. John Emery is talented enough to play in the 3 deep at Georgia when he arrives next year. He is just that good.
So Jamel Major in our Facebook comment section says that John Emery's got some family tuned in to watch today. So we appreciate all of you being here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Also on Facebook, James Crump says, think about getting Emery and Sanders for 2019. That's obviously a pretty rich consideration there. But John Emery in his own right is looking pretty good.
He's looking good, Brandon. I'm surprised I haven't heard any Trey Sanders ideal. Would you want to add another 5-star running back to the cadre or to the clip, or is that enough?
Right now, I'm very impressed with what Georgia has in John Emery Jr. I'm just looking forward to seeing Georgia hopefully win that battle and hold on to him there.
All right, guys, hold on. Pause this. This is a Before the Hedges shining moment. Brandon Adams says He is currently happy with the collection of 5 stars at a current position.
Doesn't mean I wouldn't still like to have Ty Davis, the LSU commit, but for right now, I'm happy as it goes.
All right. A satisfied Brandon Adams in terms of running back recruiting. Bill McGee, you are a magician, sir.
Well, speaking of being satisfied, over the years here around Dog Nation, as a fan of the Georgia Bulldogs myself, I've been more than plenty satisfied by some of the commitment videos I've gotten to watch right here. And as you sort of get to that time of year when a lot of these things are going to be sort of popping back up again, maybe some other guys want to make their announcement in a special way. I think it's kind of fun to sort of look back and see some of the ones that we've particularly enjoyed, some of those moments from those that have been particularly special to us. And maybe, Jeff, what we should do is give people a chance to sort of weigh in and sort of think about their own favorite when it comes to stuff like this. Does that sound like a pretty good idea?
I think that's a good idea. And what we've done at Dog Nation World Headquarters is we've sequestered 5 of our favorites. I think the number is somewhere around 11 if I keep my counts right. We've done 11 of those, but our 5 that we've thought are the best 5, we've kind of trotted out. Now, some of them run about 2-3 minutes, so we've chopped them up into about 1 minute here, but we've got some good ones. We think these are the finest ones we've put out so far. Watch them, we'll talk about them, and we'd love to hear what you think.
Let me start with this. We mentioned him a moment ago. It was a big moment when it happened. How about 5-star offensive lineman Jamari Salyer letting it know in very emphatic fashion that he was choosing the Georgia Bulldogs? Take a look.
And the SEC Country Offensive Lineman of the Year award goes to Jamari Salyer, Pace Academy.
When some guys commit, they dance around it to keep everyone guessing. That's not me. I just want to come out with it.
First of all, I'd like to thank God. Second of all, I'd like to thank my Pace Academy football family, coaches, players, both sides of the ball. You know what I'm saying? I want to tell my boy Zeus, keep his offensive guards up. We riding with him. There's one more thing I'd like to say. Any dogs out there who want to be a part of a rare breed, meaner than savages. You don't care about stars and rankings. You want to break records instead of listening to them? Come to Georgia.
Best jab with my pop poking. I actually know the backstory behind this video a little bit. Like, I remember Suge Knight at the Hip Hop Awards that time, talking about Puff Daddy being all up in the video and stuff like that. I remember that. So, believe it or not, I actually know a little bit of what this video is sort of patterned after. I hope you're impressed, by the way, because you mock me all the time for not knowing a lot about the hip hop scene and things like that. This is actually something I do know.
Brandon, you are cooler in my eyes because you know about Suge Knight and always getting into the videos and Puff Daddy, all that Game of Thrones, all that stuff. This is the stuff that really impresses me that you know about. And that, I got to give a hat tip there. That was Jamari Salyer and his offensive line coach at Kevin Johnson came to us with that idea, which riffs off the Suge Knight speech at the Source Awards. YouTube it because it's a great clip.
All right, let's see another one. We talked about Trey Hill a little earlier, and of all the videos we've done here around Dog Nation, I think that Trey Hill, maybe much like his performance on the field, this one may actually sort of resonate as underrated. I think this one's really sneaky good. Great drama here as Trey Hill climbs up his own proverbial hill towards making his decision. Take a look at Trey Hill here.
We don't focus on the 40 scholarship. We focus on when you had 0. Let's get ready to hit it.
I reached the time to make my college decision. It is the next step for me on my way. Just another day, just another grind. Everyone has their hill in life. Mine is my grind.
I'd rather believe in the S for sacrifice.
There is no shortcut. It is the only way to get to the next level. My name is Trey Hill.
Let's work, let's work, let's work.
Try to climb over me. Now, I really know my choice. Go Dogs.
For some reason, I get... Gotta get that. Oh, you gotta get that in there. For some reason, I get chills, though, when Trey Hill gives you the Go Dogs. I think because it has the breath, like he's out of breath from running up the hill and doing the workout that he does there. I mean, how do you capture that moment on video?
So this is funny. We had already reserved a golf course for this video. And it just happened the day that we booked up our camera guys and our setup and our gear. It was raining. I mean, it was monsoon time in Warner Robins, Georgia. So we had to kind of audible on the fly and move a portion of this commitment video to that area that's basically like a dance hall inside the workout area, Tim's Total Fitness. Shout out to you guys as well for helping us, letting us shoot it there. But we decided to incorporate that workout, and we had him going up the top of the hill, and he's exasperated, and then he would say, Georgia. But we watched a training moment, and I was watching him go through the training, and there's this part here where he is just exhausted with his trainer climbing over him. And we said, that's how we can build in our sell or our reveal into this video. And we did this on absolutely no plan.
It's a really theatric moment. I love that video. It's actually one of my personal favorites. A lot of you in the comment section talking about the Christmas commitments video. Part 2 of that great video leading up to the 2017 class involved the 4-star linebacker Nate McBride, and this is also one that a lot of Dog Nation has fond memories of. Here's a little bit of Nate McBride getting into the Christmas spirit.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, Nate. Just want to make sure I got this present to you before you made your decision.
Oh, man. Thanks, Santa.
Hey, be careful with that. There's a savage in there. The yells have been calling him Zay. Hey, look at that savage. He's from Brooklyn.
Yes, sir. Santa?
Merry Christmas, Nate. We got one more present for you. Nothing like making a last-second comeback against Auburn and Oregon.
How many Santas are here today?
Man, we got a whole team. Nothing like keeping our dogs in state. Hope you like your present.
Thanks, Santa.
Trying to just keep all our dogs at home. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Dog Nation.
So I think that's great stuff there, and I love the use of the automobiles, including the Corvette that you see right there with the Sikkim 17 there on the side. Just a really, really cool video, really well done, and I never get tired of seeing LeCount and Fromm and the Santa suits there.
You know, it's funny. There's some real reporting here. As we're watching these back, and Brandon and I have seen these about 1,000,000 times, and we're smiling. Brandon's got those cackles he's known for, those little gut-busting laughter, those bellows of laughter, I'll say. And you know what? Here's a funny little thing. That allows the audience in Dog Nation to know these guys before they really know these guys.
True.
And for anybody that want a little glimmer of what Fromm would be under center, the guy was amazing in a commitment video setup, in a production, in a script. He nailed his lines. He was on point. He remembered things immediately. It's almost like he had a photographic memory. You see shades of Jake Fromm, this cerebral quarterback. I think about putting these videos together and how talented Fromm was at that as well.
Something else you saw shades of there is the use of live animals. You know, in Hollywood, they say never work with children or animals. Here around Dog Nation, we violated that tenet more than once because just like that Nate McBride had his own live bulldog for his commitment, Jaden Hazelwood actually had an entire collection of dogs when he committed to the G, kind of a long time ago for this class of 2019 prospect. Here's a great look back of Jaden Hazelwood's Dog Nation commitment video.
This may sound crazy, but I'm ready to make my college decision.
Jay be on the ballin'.
Am I too young to make my college commitment though?
Where you take off on these routes? That smooth.
Some people might say that. Look, man. But they don't know my situation.
Man, you looking good out there, man. I can't believe you 2019. You better be ready to play early.
Can I ask you guys a question?
What's up?
How did y'all know y'all was ready to commit?
You? Commit? You just a sophomore, man.
I know, but I feel ready. How would I know?
I know I want you to go, but I'm not gonna pressure you about it. But I would love for you to be a part of the family, though. You'll know when you know, bro. It's gonna feel like home.
Thanks, guys. I got a little more thinking to do, man. My mind and my heart are locked in one place. Come here, Rookie. Everybody meet Rookie. We're here to change the game. New Breed 19. Georgia boys gotta stay home. Commit to the G.
And obviously the thought among many Georgia fans is those hands there from Jaden Hazelwood could be catching a lot of touchdowns to come for the Georgia Bulldogs. An awesome, awesome video. But maybe the one that tops them all was the original Dog Nation commitment video, or at least pretty close to the original Dog Nation commitment video. It was the first edition of the Christmas commitments, and it featured not one, but two UGA commits, as Malik Herring and wide receiver J.J. Holloman made it official on the same day in a video that we're still talking about here around Dog Nation.
I have no idea yet about what I want to do. How am I going to make up my mind? I know. I'll ask Santa. Maybe he can help me figure it out. I want to play for championships. I want to be a part of something greater than myself. I want to be on a great team. But that's not all. I want to play with savages.
When I was a kid and I couldn't choose what I wanted for Christmas, I'd write a letter to Santa. I'd ask for a lot of stuff, and he knew just what to bring me. I need to figure out where I'm going to play college football.
Hold the clip from this video. Anytime Georgia flips somebody.
Good evening, Jeremiah. You've asked for it, you've got it. I'm bringing you what you wanted early this year.
Thanks, Santa.
You got it, JJ. Hey, change the game.
What's up, Malik? You asked for it, you got it. I'm giving you just what you wanted, but this time, this present doesn't come in orange.
Thanks, Santa. I'm gonna play with savages, right?
Yeah, you can bet on that.
I got you, Santa.
What's up, man?
What's up, my dog?
All right, man, commit to the G.
Yeah, 6-17, Santa brought my presents early.
All right, cool. I'm gonna call Kirby Mel, let him know what's up.
All right, I'm gonna call Coach Coley and Jeff at Dog Nation.
Commit to the G.
Hey, Richie, when do you think we need to let Malik and Jeremiah know what we did?
Probably sophomore year in Jacksonville. After we beat Florida again.
What's funny about that is the Savages plays there is that when Richard LeCount said that, at the time it seemed like LeCount and Fromm's sophomore year, having beaten Florida again, seemed like such a long time ago, and here we are, 52 days from right now, it's going to happen once again.
Yeah, and you look at that, and
at least I think it is.
You look around there, and they're playing video games, and I guess the reveal there is another reveal of who Santa actually was, and obviously they're playing video games, and they're talking about 2 straight wins as sophomores against those mighty Gators.
And you got people there that day with the to be continued on that because people want to know which one's going to be next. And obviously, Nate McBride would follow really closely after that. But the other thing you saw in the sort of original Christmas commitment video, the best single moment from any of these videos, even though LeCount and Fromm are both very funny, seeing Malik Herring, who now probably tips to Toledo somewhere around 270 pounds, seeing him then do that backflip the way that he did will always be sort of the most impressive athletic feat of any of these videos.
Yeah, and it was funny. Malik's like, you want me to do it? I can do it. He was doing we had to take a couple takes, so Malik was ripping off multiple backflips and back tucks, and he's probably about 6'4", 245 at that point. There was a pool nearby too, and there was some wet ground, and Malik's like, don't worry, man, I got this.
All right, so Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. We got our Jeff Sintel 6-pack of questions here coming up. We'll give our Before the Hedges, how about them groceries, $50 gift card away here as well. So we're loaded here in the final couple of minutes here as we kind of go overtime. Let me squeeze one more point in, though, in terms of what just came out today. This is late breaking. Andy Boykin, 2020, recent decommit from Auburn. He tweets this out today, and I find this to be pretty interesting. Now, there's been a lot of chatter about Boykin as of late, as it is. It seems like he's only fanning the flames of that kind of stuff more, with a great rendition with the brand new locker room there, looks like, at Georgia, with his own potential jersey right there in that. Jeff, listen, you're good at writing the words. I'm good at reading between the lines. There ain't no lines to read between on that one. That looks like a guy that's pretty interested in Georgia right now.
Sounds like it's, if I know my math correctly, I don't even need my fingers and toes, all of them. I think it's about a week to the day after his decommitment. He feels like letting a little bit of himself out there a little bit now.
Yeah, it seems like that. And so could be Georgia sort of working its way in there. The guy that until last week was committed to Auburn University. All right, Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Don't forget, keep Kroger in mind. You got big-time tailgate parties coming up. You're hosting a watch party there at your house for these games on TV, including the one Saturday at 3:30. Make sure you use Kroger for all the fun there. I can't promise you your team will get the win, but I can promise you that you'll be the big winner in terms of everybody being happy with the game day essentials that you're providing for everybody else there. All right, so now it is time for what is really one of my favorite parts of the show, and that is our six-pack of questions. We don't have a ton of time for these here today, but I want to give everybody a chance to sort of weigh in on all of this and give me a chance to as well. A little bit different this week. I have no preview of these questions whatsoever. I literally do not know what's coming.
We're going to play Stump the Host, and hopefully maybe we've got the buzzers and the bells all squirreled away from last week. And we're going to see how much Brandon knows and how much everybody else knows. But by the way, before we get started, remember, throw those votes in there about what you think was your favorite
That's exactly right.
Dog Nation commitment video of all time.
Yeah, put it in the comment section or on Twitter at Jeff Sintel or at Dog Nation Daily. This may be something we sort of keep tabs on here for the next few weeks, maybe on Before the Hedges.
Yeah, I'll probably put a poll up soon on Twitter, and I'll have real micro versions of those videos because we have to get it within 2 minutes, and then we'll have a poll and see what the favorite one and see what the title belt holder is right now.
All right, we don't pick up the pace. We're going to have to pay time and a half to our crew here. So let's get it rolling with the six-pack of questions.
Six-pack trivia. Question 1. Who was in the most recent Dog Nation commitment video?
Most recent commitment video. Was it Hazelwood?
The most recent Dog Nation commitment video. I want you guys to, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think about it now. It was a class of, it was in the 2018 recruiting cycle. You had a big time player.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Who committed to the Bulldogs, of course.
Can I have a second try?
Get your answers in there. Brandon wants an audible. He wants a redo.
It's Salyer, right?
The most recent commitment video is.
All
you heard the bell.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So Jamari Salyer, one of the ones we saw there a moment ago. By the way, Bruce Cohen, you make fun of me for saying Hazelwood, but Bruce Cohen said Hazelwood too.
That's all right, man. Everybody thinks about him being. Remember, he committed in his sophomore year.
A long time ago,
and
right?
If I had an extra question, I would say, which one does Brandon hope stays committed to the University?
That would definitely be the very easy answer on that. I think a lot of people would join me on that.
Next up, number two. Question number two. Question number 2. Who was in the very first Dog Nation commitment video?
I hate to bring up a bad subject, but was it Emery, the offensive lineman?
No, not Deontay Demery. Not Deontay Demery.
Yeah, Demery.
Nope.
He wasn't the first one?
He wasn't the first one. There was one prior to that. I'm going to give you a hint.
I don't have any memory of it.
I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to say counter programming. It was an example of counter programming for everybody out there.
I have no memory of this whatsoever.
No memory of this. So let's give you guys a couple of seconds to get your answers.
Yeah, let me see if somebody comes on the answer.
I want to see if anybody can
Let me go to Facebook,
Brandon.
see if anybody's got the answer. Bridget Medlock says DeAndre Swift. It was not Swift. Who was it?
The very first Dog Nation commitment video, I'll give you a hint. Dog Tags threw a shout out to his younger brother across the country. That would be none other than the counter programming from the D-Rob decision.
Trey Blunt did a video? I love Trey. I did not know Trey did a video.
Trey did the very first Dog Nation commitment video.
I honestly don't think I saw this video.
I think you did. You probably had to, Brandon.
I don't have any memory of this whatsoever.
He's only a 4-star, Brandon.
Now,
I know why you don't remember. He was only a 4-star.
No, that's not true. Well, we had a chance to meet Trey and hang out with him for one of our Marlowe's broadcasts. I love him as a player, but I don't remember his commitment video. I'll have to go back and watch it.
Yep, it's a pretty good one. It almost made the top 5.
All right. You got the next
Number
one?
3, six-pack. And this is one of those test your brain questions. Which one of these statements is false?
Okay.
A, one of our commitment videos was a tribute to a famous 1990s music video clip.
We talked about that already.
A water slide was used in the video.
We'll see about that one.
C, Brandon Adams made an appearance in the video.
People can weigh in on that.
A future commit was gut punched several times.
As strange as it may seem, you may want to think twice about that one.
Live Bulldogs have been featured in 3 of our videos.
Which is crazy as it sounds.
And number F, Jake Fromm drove a monster truck in one of our videos.
All right, Keith Tyree says C. I can tell you that's not correct. Philip Jordan Wells says D. Go back and watch the Trey Hill video. I can tell you that's not correct. He was, as strange as it sounds, he was punched in the gut several times during the video. It was one of the coolest moments on that. Back over here on Facebook for a moment. Philip Jordan Wells also says C. No, I was in the Jamari Salyer video. I made a brief appearance in the Salyer video. I'm going to go with B. We've never used a water slide before.
B, a water slide. Is that? Let me get final answers from
Will
a lot of your guys.
Will Fletcher agrees with me on that too.
I could even.
Derek Lewis says E, but we've used Bulldog several times.
Okay.
Sonia Prescott says B. She's with me. We've never used a water slide before.
Can I get a buzzer, please? Do we have a buzzer?
Yeah, we have a buzzer sounded.
This is going to sound like the South Carolina game plan on Saturday night.
Which one is it?
The incorrect answer is live Bulldogs have been featured in 3 of our videos.
Oh, I didn't look at. Okay, it's 2 of the videos, right?
2 of the videos.
Okay,
have
I'm
included
sorry.
a live
So I sold you wrong. We've used a water slide. Who was in a water slide?
Karis Jackson went down a water slide and inflatable.
Where are all these videos? I have no memory of these whatsoever.
He's only a 4-star, Brandon.
I have no memory of that whatsoever. All right, next one.
Okay, this is we go some game-related preview question. How many 4-star recruits has South Carolina signed over the last 3 cycles?
All right, JC, Jemias, Sandage. I'm going to give them a couple more. The other defensive lineman, the JUCO kid. I'm going to give them 6.
6. Okay, let me get some questions in there. I know nobody's going to nail
Probably
this.
more than 6.
But give me an approximate, because this is the 2016,
yes, 3 cycles.
2017, and 2018 recruiting classes. And this little one right here will give everybody a little bit of intel, perhaps, when they want to kind of prognosticate the game on Saturday.
Yeah, it's more than 6. I wasn't thinking about 3 cycles. I'll say 20.
20. Your answer is 20.
Yeah.
I would almost give you a bell for this. But let's buzzer him. You're going to go through some shock therapy today, sir.
I am gonna get some
the
shock
correct
therapy.
answer is
19. Not bad.
5 in 2016, 6 in 2017, and 8 in 2018. Now, I want everybody to go straight to the last line of that graphic. Georgia has signed 53 4-stars or better in that same time span.
What that graphic's trying to tell you is Georgia by 17.
That's what 53 to 19 is the count on the elite prospects signed by each staff since 2016.
Todd Argros had a pretty good guess with 16 there as well. All right, so what question are we up to?
We're on question number 5.
All right, number 5. 5 stars on South Carolina's roster.
How many 5-stars are on South Carolina's roster?
I'm going to say zilch, 0, zip. They don't have a 5-star.
Let me see.
Jadavian Klein's in the NFL now.
Let me see if our viewers are smarter than Brandon on this.
I'm sticking with 0 on this one.
Viewers, I want to give you 5, 4, 3,
Who would it be?
2, 1. Do we get a buzzer? No,
Yeah.
we get a bell. The correct answer?
0.
There are 0. And here's a neat little factoid.
Okay.
South Carolina has only signed 4 5-star recruits in its entire history. Reminder, Georgia signed 7 in 2018.
That is a pretty big-time performance there. All right, any more?
Number 6, let's crack open the last one of our 6-pack. Question 6, which Gamecock was the highest rated recruit that the program has signed on the current roster?
It's either Sandage or Jemias Williams, I'm guessing. I'm going to say
You got to get, what are the other?
I'm going to go Rick Sandage.
Rick Sandage, I want everybody else, I want to weigh in. Let's get some audience engagement and participation here. Weigh in who you think is the highest rated prospect on the Gamecock roster.
I'm going Sandage. Let's see what comes in. Let me check on the YouTube side. I haven't given them a lot of credit. Real Cage does remind us they have a 5-star committed. That's true. Shane Bentley says, how about Jake Bentley?
Jake Bentley. Brandon, will it be buzzer or bell for Brandon?
Show me Rick Sandage.
It's going to be...
Oh, come on.
Jemias
Williams.
Williams.
Look at that.
4-star in 2017.
Top 100 player. I did not realize that.
So another thing to think about there.
And by the way, a lot of people got this. Brian Clark, Tom Grost, Devin Glenn. A lot of folks got that.
Jemias Williams, number 76 overall in the country. 76 overall in the country is the highest rated prospect on the entire South Carolina team.
All right, so we are running real late here. So a great 6-pack of questions. We'll do that every week here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. One of the things we also like to run here is our How About Them Groceries $50 giveaway. Who we're going to give it to here for today? You had a great suggestion earlier.
I've got a hat tip to an earlier response, really early in our show. Remember, you had to get a good question in that we both faced and liked. And that would be Mr. Ortega,
yeah,
Jarrell
Ortega. Great question.
Because I'm gonna give you the real reason why you won this, sir. It's because we were already progressing through a very loaded show, had a lot of buttons to push and a lot of things to cover. But you reminded us about what's the position fit for Lewis Cine, and we were able to give Lewis Cine We will give it his exact words.
Yeah,
audio
what
clip.
Jeff's saying is I would have forgotten to play the audio clip had you not reminded us in the comment section. So for that, you get a $50 gift card. By the way, Cameron Merrill also asked about Josh Belk there. I mean, that's a former, Clemson signee. That's I don't think he's going to play on Saturday probably, but that's a pretty good, 4-star name you have to add to that group there.
But he wasn't in the Jemias range.
Was he not a top 100 recruit?
He was not a top. I don't know if he's a top. I think he's right around 115 or so, something like that. So, hey, Mr. Ortega.
He's nowhere near 115 right now, if you get my drift.
Mr. Ortega, I will give you props to you because you were Brandon's wingman on that one.
Thanks so much. And Jeff Sintel, thanks to you for being a great partner and wingman here each and every Wednesday. All right, so we're back next Wednesday at 3 p.m. for Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Jeff Sintel will be back with the Sintel Intel all week there at dognation.com, keeping you updated on the UGA recruiting talk in print. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for Dog Nation Daily. We're getting ready to be in Columbia on Saturday. Can't wait for that. And congratulations to Steve Langston, our winner for our Dog Nation Invasion giveaway, courtesy of Kroger. Thanks to Kroger as well for making all this possible. We'll see you again next week right here for Before the Hedges.